Brick is a 2005 neo-noir mystery film written and directed by Rian Johnson, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Norah Zeitner, Noah Fleiss, Matt O'Leary, Megan Good, Emil de Ravin, Lucas Haas, and more.
So, you didn't know this boy?
No, sir, never seen him.
And he just hit you?
They asked for my lunch money first. Good thing I brown bagged it.
If I get to the bottom, whatever this is...
What do you want?
Just to see you sweat. And it gets too hot.
You got a discipline issue with me? Write me up or suspend me.
I see that you're trying to help her. And I don't know anybody who would do that for me.
You are dangerous. I set out to know, put her on the spot, and put her in front of the gun. There's not much chance of coming out clean.
Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I am joined once again by the only person that knows where I eat lunch. That's Mr. Zack Taylor from
What's up?
Commander Social.
It's true. That's where you can usually hear me from week to week.
And this was always a movie that I had on the periphery, but I just never sat down and watched it. But, sir, what was it about Brick? How did you find this movie, and why did you want to talk about Brick?
I don't know. I don't really remember how I found this movie. I got it from Netflix one day back in the day, when they still mailed you DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever.
Nice.
And I got it and I watched it and I just fell in love with this movie. I was just this movie is amazing. I've been into the neo-noir movies for a while. I remember reading a review of Minority Report and they're like, yeah, this is a neo-noir, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, whoa, really? And so I started watching other neo-noir type movies. I watched North by Northwest. That's a great one. And some other ones. And I don't know, something about this movie, the juxtaposition of the of what it's about versus where it happens, I think is something just really good. And I love all of the dialogue. I just think it's great.
The first thing that kind of sticks out to me is that this is Rian Johnson's debut feature.
Yep. I
just want that to sink in to the audience. That's crazy, because now is where I go off on a little bit of a tangent. And I didn't tell you anything beforehand. I just told you that I had some things to say about this.
I have no idea what's coming.
I am no expert on Rian Johnson. This is the third film that I've seen of his. But what I could see, just even by the opening credits, I get Rian Johnson so much more now. And it made me like the rest of his filmography even more, because watching this, we unveil what's going on. It's almost like Clue. It's a mystery noir where it sets you up, where it shows the aftermath of something horrible happening and the consequences right up front. So right there, this is what we're going to be unraveling for the rest of the runtime, right? When I saw that, just a big epiphany went off in my brain. I'm like, this is what Rian Johnson does. This is his cinematic language. He likes when you are along from the ride. It's not about the end. It's about the journey as far as fact-finding and just going layer by layer and clue by clue. And this is evident from Brick in 2005 all the way up to his newest film in Knives Out in 2019.
Yeah.
This is Rian Johnson's shit. And conversely, this made me like The Last Jedi even more, because it's become a meme with Rian Johnson where the whole time they're just like, oh, he was just some guy just trying to subvert your expectations. But the reality is he didn't know how to do it a different way. The only way he knows how to make films, and it's fucking fantastic. The problem is with Star Wars, an IP like Star Wars, is there's no room for this level of creativity. You get the filmmakers like the Russo brothers or J.J. Abrams or even Spielberg that can manage a franchise like that. But, that's why people freaked out, because Star Wars just wasn't his story to tell. And but every time I've seen a Rian Johnson film now, I am so along for the ride, because he does this type of film masterfully. So rant over.
Yeah, no, he's great. And the cinematography is always good, and I may not love the story in his Star Wars movie, but the cinematography is just amazing, and it's a beautiful film to watch. And all of his movies are. Looper's great. Same with Knives Out, and like I like how he tries to tell these different stories. You know, this is a neo-noir set in a high school. You know, Looper was a time travel movie. Knives Out was a Agatha Christie jam. Like, he has his way of doing it, and I think you're 100% right. That's why it didn't fit in Star Wars, because I think they keep such a tight leash on that he couldn't be himself.
No question. But again, now with the context of everything, and even the context of the last, installment of the Skywalker trilogy or whatever, I like The Last Jedi, I think, the best of the new trilogies. And it's kind of a low bar, but I could see where he was really trying to take it in a different way, where a Rian Johnson movie, you're literally going for clues. Like, there's notes in a locker or on a dressing room mirror, and the same thing happened in Star Wars, where there's all these little clues, but not all of them led to like a bit of cheese at the end of the maze, because that's not what happens in a mystery. You're gonna get wrong turns and stuff like that, and that's what he was trying to do in that movie. But it just wasn't right for him. He was just completely miscast as a filmmaker for something as on rails as Star Wars.
I agree. No, I know people that have like seen Star Wars, that one, and they're like, Rian Johnson's dead to me. And I was like, have you seen Brick? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, and I'll go off like the rails for a little bit. For me, it's like, it's a fucking neo-noir masterpiece. Like, you have to watch this movie no matter what else he does. And then, he came back with Knives Out, and I was like, yes, like, this is awesome. And they're supposed to make a sequel to that. I'm interested to see what that ends up being.
A sequel to Knives Out?
Yeah.
You know what? I think, and I think that Jason and I on Film Mulligans, when we talked about Knives Out in our best of 2019, where I think I said that I would love to see a Netflix 8 to 10 episode series of Knives Out, because Knives Out is one of the best movies that you never have to see twice. It's like Clue. It's like playing the game of Clue. Once you know, and that's kind of the magic of it. It doesn't really have like a rewatchability, but I would love to see him do a bunch of those, and I would watch the hell out of that.
Yeah, I heard that they were going to do something like what you were talking about, except like it was going to have all the same cast. James Bond, I can't think of his name. Daniel Craig. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's always going to be the detective, but it's going to be a different mystery story with the same people playing different characters. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like some Ryan Murphy stuff. I was like, I'd watch that.
that one's free. Rian Johnson, I guess, he heard he watched the show, so he's a fan of the show. What can I say? Going back to Brick, just the scope of this film and just talking about this film by itself, how would you describe to someone that's never seen this film in a non-spoiler way that you would want to convince to watch Brick?
I would say that it was an adult mystery that occurs in a high school, I'd say. If you're into detective movies and things like that, like I am, like, you're gonna love it.
This was just my jam. Like, from the credits on, this was one of the more Lynchian films that was not directed by David Lynch that I've ever seen. And not even hyperbole aside, I was just like, holy crap, it felt like a distant cousin of like a Mulholland Drive or a Blue Velvet even. It had this, this along for the ride, everyone's an asshole, people in way over their head. But it also, like, if it felt like a distant relative to those, it felt like it could exist in the universe of Twin Peaks, which, of course, if anyone knows me, that's just my thing. You even get the little nod, the little wink at the camera, the coffee pie. And I was just like, oh, God, this is like Twin Peaks. I later read that was a reference to Caro's, because it was shot in California. And I'm like, I'm just going to pretend that was a David Lynch thing.
I read that it was shot at the high school that Rian Johnson had actually gone to. It's like San Clementine High School or something like that. And I think that's like a really cool thing to do, to be able to like go back and shoot a film, because you're gonna know those places so intimately and be able to get like the shots that he did that just seem really cool. Absolutely.
As you said, just the familiarity of the area, because you're in actual neighborhoods that not, you know, just a filmmaker going on the scene wouldn't like go seek out, but he knew like where these like telephone booths were, and just a cool like vantage points way to shoot him, like when he's following the one bum like punker kid, and you get just those shots of just like him always in the background in a way where, you know, he's the guy could just look over his shoulder at any point, but he doesn't. The familiarity of this area, which you can't fake. That's not, you can be a great filmmaker, but you can't fake firsthand experience.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like, you know, some of these places where the kids sat, like where Brain kind of sat against the wall, you know, in that little walkway, or by the loggers, these are places like you could tell he had been, like he probably or possibly had like sat there or talked to someone who was sitting there, and I think that's really cool. I definitely love like what its influences, you know, the hard-boiled type crime novels. Like, I used to read a bunch of those when I was a kid, and that was like a big thing for me. And just, it surprised me that and it made sense to me when I was rewatching it, but they were saying that it was Cowboy Bebop was a big influence on him. And some of the action scenes where someone's running or something like that, it definitely feels sort of Cowboy Bebop to me, which is one of my favorite. I mean, I don't watch a lot of anime, but that's like one of my favorite shows of all time. As
you said, the very pronounced influences from these old crime noir books, mostly by Dashiell Hammett, and he even told the cast to go ahead and read these just to get inspiration that way for the characterization. However, he's like, do not watch old, you know, noir films, because he didn't want the acting to kind of seep through. He didn't want, you know, people walking around and, you know, being gumshoes and, you know.
And hey, where's the speakeasy?
Right. It almost speaks in code, right? It sounds like like Joseph Gordon-Levitt sounds like he's talking at a open mic poetry reading the entire time.
Right. Like I just, that was another thing, because like I'm kind of a writer, and I love like the word choices that they use. Like these are definitely not how high school kids speak. Like, you know, I want to think I'm cool and spoke like that in high school. I probably didn't, but like they're, you know, like you said, they've got their little codes. And, you know, the thing with the bridge with the A and thing, like he just realizes that's like where that is. And that's another, you know, point to, this is where Johnson's from. Like, they can do codes like this.
It's an underpass on the Pico exit. I've been there. Like, you know, I used to live in California, and it's crazy that he made that little, because I mean, it's literally just a storm drain.
Remarkable.
Not remarkable at all. Thank you. And he made it look extremely cinematic. And the code to which they speak, I would say there's a 5-minute settling in period, but once you're in. It's never like too much to where you're just like, I have no idea what's going on. You kind of, once you settle in, you feel like you're part of this like club, which was fun. I was just like, it's like I got the decoder ring, and now I know what the hell they're talking about.
Well, it was cool to see Brendan, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, float in between like these different social groups, and it makes you wonder, at least for me, like which group is he from? How does he know all these people? It makes you wonder about his past. Like, I don't know. It seemed like, I mean, you know, they do talk about where he was like a small-time drug dealer with his friend that he turned on, but like, other than that, you don't know anything about him. And it's like, well, he seems like a nice guy, but is he? But I don't know. Everyone seemed to know him.
And I won't say in a Lester movie, but I will say in every other high school movie, because there's a lot of high school movies that did this trope where, you know, in the other films, he would have had a scene where he's sitting in the cafeteria, and it's just like, he's having an exposition dump with a friend. He's just like, that's where the jocks sit. That's where the
like
skaters.
Mean Girls,
Discerning Behavior, Twilight. Yeah. I mean, it just goes on and on. They always do that, right? Yep. And this is just like, it was almost like a thumb at the nose at that. He's just like, no, this is, you know where I eat lunch, and it turns out to just be like the side of an unremarkable building.
Right.
I liked that kind of play on it. I also liked the juxtaposition of his character, because, you know, like we stated, he does speak like he's like doing an open mic poetry reading, but he's constantly just beating the shit out of people.
Oh, I know. I was gonna like talk about that. Like, he's like a Superman. He just like goes nuts. He just wails on people's asses, and I'm like, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Like when he fights the football player kid, I was just like, jeez.
He like Superman punches him at one
Yeah.
point.
Like it's nuts. And I'm like, who is this kid?
You don't expect. I mean, I've been watching Joseph Gordon-Levitt movies since I was a kid, and
Same.
I feel like we've all grown up together. He's kind of in our same age group, and you never think of him as like casting him as a badass. You think Chris Evans or Brad Pitt or something like that. But no, it's just like but the epicness of which he gets his ass kicked is great too. There's some great scenes when he's going against what's his name, Thug.
Tug. Yeah, where Tug just like punches him in the face, and he like gets down, he's falling, and he like picks himself back up and just takes another one. And I'm just like, you were in a Batman movie, and you weren't even that badass in that Batman movie.
Yeah, or Inception doing the whole like twisty hallway. Like this was cool. This was like almost Scott Pilgrim level, because he put in these, like, Rian Johnson. This was his first film, so he put in these kind of like adorable little in-camera effects.
Yeah.
Which were cool, though. Like, you didn't need, like, huge Inception level, Christopher Nolan level effects for this, like, smaller high school movie. But he still stylized it in a way to make it just that much more hyper-realism, which I appreciated.
And I think I was thinking about, like, the Foley for that is just nuts, right? Like, these the way these punches are landing, it's just, like, knocking it out of the park each time. And, like, in real fights, you're not gonna hear all these noises, but like that was something that I thought about, was the Foley just being so good for these fights.
Mm-hmm. I love the scene again when he's getting his ass beat, and then just that cool little choice of him like putting his hand up against the window of the car. Yeah, I don't know. It just had that like never give up, and like he just took like 6 blows, hard blows to the face. And then, like, the Tug, like, speeds off, and he still throws a rock at him.
Yeah.
Like, who is this guy?
Yeah, that part where Tug's coming out, and he's got that cinder block. He's about to drop it on his car, and he's like, should I? Like, you just like, it's just, like, pissed off, like, walking towards, just like, should I? And then the guy just comes and punches him, and I was like, man, like, that would never cross my mind to be like, let me throw a cinder block in this car.
Let's stay with the cinematography real quick, because this is the cinematographer that would also, still go on to do films like Star Wars with him, Steve Yeldon. They have been collaborating since Brick, so they are very familiar with each other, and you could tell, like, just cool shot choices. Like I read something that said like Rian Johnson wanted to focus on the shoes in this film because that kind of told more about the character. I thought that was an interesting choice. So there's a lot of from the ground up, just looking at really small, subtle details like arrows on a cigarette butt and all these things. I appreciate just like the super attention to detail.
I definitely was going to bring up Brendan's shoes, right? Like normal kid like that you'd think would be in like some sneakers or some Converse or something, but he's got these like real old-timey kind of old man shoes, and like when you see him wearing them, you can it just feels like this was his choice to wear this specific pair of shoes. He wasn't doing it to be cool or because that's all he had. He wanted to wear these shoes for some reason. And I'm just like, okay, I'll go with it.
Yeah, everyone had their thing. Like it was like if they were action figures, they all came with like certain accessories. Like the pin had there was like this eagle motif.
Oh man,
it's just everywhere. Like when they pick him up in the van, he's got this weird grandma lamp with an eagle on it.
Yeah. I love. He's like, I'm in the house, in the basement of the house on this street with the tacky mailbox, and it's got that eagle on the mailbox. I thought the statue in the office was sweet. I thought that whole office was kind of tight.
Super Lynchian. Like that, even that shot when he walks in, like he gets pushed down the hallway and he like smacks his face, and then he goes to look around. They turn on the light and you see the whole hallway is lined with people, and then he walks in and it's this like super symmetrical, almost Stanley Kubrick, very David Lynch shot. I was like, oh my God, like again, attention to detail. And the more it went on, because like at first I was just, there were so many fade cuts, and I'm like, okay, it's his first feature, fade cut. It's just like, I don't know. It was just an easy way to show like movement of time and all this stuff. And but then the shot composition started getting a little bit more interesting, and they did something that I can't remember for the life of me right now, but another filmmaker that I love, they do that side profile, one person in frame, quick jump cut to do an exposition scene, like in the library. The vantage point is you're looking through like the other aisle books, and you're looking through,
Right.
and every time someone talks, it does a fast jump cut just to their side profile. I've always liked that technique, and not a lot of people do it.
I agree. As a first outing, like, it's insane. Like, this movie, like, in my opinion, like I said, is a masterpiece, right? And this is this dude's first movie. Yeah, I loved all the shots in the Penn's house. Like, it just, I don't know, the whole thing just seemed weird. And then there was like when his mom was serving him breakfast and stuff, and it's like she knows what's happening here. Yeah. She knows what her son does. She just, she's like, I gotta do some stuff in the other room.
Yeah, here's your cornflakes. It played with tone as far as it kind of telegraphed what it wanted you to feel with different like color filters, like in the beginning when he's trying to find M, and it's all very blue and very just like melancholy. And when he goes and beats up the punk kid Dode, he like beats his ass and then like says some like weird grandpa stuff to the other, like the rest of the crew.
Oh man, that's like one of the greatest lines from him. It's like I wrote it down for it. It's like, throw one at me if you want, hash head. I've got all 5 senses and I slept last night. That puts me 6 up on the lot of you. And they're all just like, whoa. We don't know what he said, but we're out.
Right.
We're totally out.
And Dode kind of looks at him like when he walks away, and he's like, yeah, you better walk away.
Yeah.
Like once he's already gone.
Bleeding out his face.
Yeah, man. It's just so much fun because you had the comedy came from the satire, because they played it straight, man. Like it wasn't a parody of these type of films, because I think if it was, it would have came off as super disingenuous and it just wouldn't have been fun. No, they went hardcore. Like he's just like, no, we're gonna do this thing with the speak and everything, and they went for it.
I definitely loved the scene where he's with the vice principal. Like, usually, in these types of movies, the detective type person ends up at the cop house, like having to like kind of like get out of trouble a little bit, and that's what that felt like, and like, and I love how they both like speak to each other as adults or whatever. Like it felt really cool, and it was cool that scene like really felt like a scene out of another movie. And it's got another one of these great lines where it's like, if you have a disciplinary issue with me, write me up or send me. I'll see you at the parent teacher conference. And he just walks out. He just walks out. I was like, just like mic drop. I was like, yeah, that's pretty awesome.
It's so
some good lines.
Yeah. Let's talk, since we're on the cast, let's talk about the cast. I think this was, like I said, I've been a complete fan, which means I've been a fan of everything that Joseph Gordon-Levitt has done, not just acting wise. I think he's just a good person in general.
Yeah.
Like, I love his projects, and I love his films. And every time I think I've seen them all, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a big JGL fan. There's like 4 of these movies like Brick that I still have yet to find, and I'm like, oh my god, it's cementing my appreciation for how versatile of an actor he is.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's so funny, like, because you grew up watching him on 30 Rock from the Sun, right? And he's just like the horny comic relief, and then he does something like this, and you're like, wow. And then he does that movie about walking across the buildings on a tightrope, and you're like, wow.
Right? Yeah.
Like, the dude's been in a bunch of stuff. The girl that played Laura, like, she looked so familiar to me from somewhere, but I couldn't, like, I looked what movies she had been in, and I didn't really recognize her from anything else.
Was that Norah Zeitner?
Yeah. She definitely felt like this like noir, like temptress type girl. She's like smoking the cigarettes, like leaned up against the doorway. Like, I thought she was pretty good.
Yeah, I think for the most part, if I'm going to be honest, like, she was a standout. Amelia Doravin didn't do a ton, or she didn't have a ton of screen time, but she did fine, from Lost fame. Lucas Haas, I think we both agreed, what was another standout, but the rest were, I mean,
they were there.
Yeah, yeah. The Tug guy was just like act mad all the time, and it's like, okay, I guess he nailed it,
I thought Brad Bramish Brian White, who played Brad Bramish, got his moment when he was giving that speech in the parking lot right before getting his ass beat. But yeah, Lucas Haas was real interesting in it, because I never had been able to figure out how old he was supposed to be in that movie. I'd say like mid-20s probably.
Yeah.
But like, he acts like the Godfather, and I know he's technically the Godfather of this movie, but like Marlon Brando, like he's got the cane, he's got like the cape, and he doesn't like put his arms through the thing. It's just like draped over him or whatever. And I thought it was a pretty. I thought he did better in this movie than he did in Inception. I'll say.
Yeah, well, you never have to argue for Inception with me. I thought that was Nolan's worst film. I
love that movie.
Hot take.
Yeah. No, Lucas Haas is only in the first 10 minutes of that movie.
I feel like Lucas Haas is always in the first 10 minutes of a lot of movies.
Yeah, me too.
That's
me
it.
Too.
Yeah. Which is which is sad because I think he does pretty good work.
What did I just watch him in the other day? Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, is that dude?
Yeah, he had more screen time than Jack Nicholson in that movie.
Right.
A really fun ride. And every time I thought I figured out what type of film it was, it did something a little bit different. It subverted my expectations. The memes are true with Ryan Johnson. No, but it was just it's great because it started so small, like such a small movie, and then it kind of ramps up, and not only the dialogue ramps up, but the stakes ramp up, and then just like how everyone's interconnected. And then you get some real like stylized shots with the whole like the dream sequences with the garbage bag, and they literally just filmed that sequence backwards, and it's an easy cheap trick, but it's very effective. They did it very effectively. The kind of culmination, like the gang war at the end, without giving too much away, because I don't want to be too spoiler in this review because I think people should see it. Love the way that was shot. How little they show, how restrained they allowed themselves to be, where Ryan Johnson was asking you to use your other senses to tell what was going on rather than just seeing two people brawling. And I thought it was super effective.
Yeah, it looked real good.
Why should people go out and see Brick 15 years later?
Because it's one of the few movies that stands that kind of test of time, man. 15 years, that's a long time. People, you've seen Joseph Gordon-Levitt and stuff. Just check it out. It's worth your 2 hours to watch it. And I will say, man, you had me scared when you're like, I'm not going to tell you anything about. I was like, he hated this movie. And I was like, how am I gonna deal with that? I was like, it's like being up against Jason Alt. I was like, I'm just gonna have to take it. But that was a good surprise. I'm glad you liked it so much, man. Like, I really do love this movie. It's in my top 5 easily.
It's up there, man. It's very good. No, I didn't Hudson Hawk you. I did the same thing when I talked Hudson Hawk with Jason. The only thing is I did shit all over that movie, and it's like so precious to him, and I felt bad. But then I'm like, why do you like this movie?
It's so campy for the time. I enjoy it.
Yikes.
But anyway,
I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of a hipster or something, but this is like you said, definitely worth your time if you are just a fan of like filmmaker, like seeing filmmakers progression. And that's what really like gets me excited and jacked to review and talk about films, is I love seeing the trajectory of a filmmaker from start to finish. And
oh yeah, absolutely, man,
as a first feature, putting this up against other people's first features, this is hard to beat. This was so competently made. This film could have been made in 2020 and it still would have been just as enjoyable. So I could totally see why this definitely has a cult following. So I want to thank Mr. Zack Taylor. Thank you so much for joining me once again on the Cult of Films. Look into that camera, sir. Tell everyone where to find you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. You can find me at Z4CK38 on Twitter, and you can check out my podcast, Commander Social, on Twitter at Commander Social, and hope y'all check it out.
Find me at John the Host. You could also find this very show's Twitter handle at The Cult of Films, all lowercase. I'll be uploading this to all your favorite podcasting sites as well, like your iTunes, Spotify's. Leave us some ratings, thumbs up the video, tell everyone that we are talking about films. Until next time, where are we eating lunch, Zach?
Man, I'm having this real craving for catfish. So this place called Catfish Parlor in Austin.
Perfect. Is it under a turnpike?
Sorta.
No. And no more of these informal chats either. You got a discipline issue with me? Write me up or suspend me. I'll see you at the parent conference.